I'm Joel Rothstein. We are here with Mike Lake, who is a Democratic candidate for Lieutenant Governor. Thank you for participating. Before we start, let's review the format of the interview. This will be a live-to-tape interview. That means no edits once we begin. There was no pre-screening of questions, and answers will be limited to 2 minutes each. We will start with a 1-minute opening statement from the candidate, and after the questions, we will conclude with a 1-minute closing statement. Mr. Lake, you have 1 minute to open.
Thank you, Joel. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Mike Lake, and I'm running to be your next Lieutenant Governor. I'm running to be Lieutenant Governor because I've had the opportunity to work with extraordinary leaders, people like Mike Dukakis and Bill Clinton, people who taught me that public service is the way we can make a difference in the lives of our friends, our family, and our neighbors. When I worked at the White House during the Clinton administration, I saw firsthand that when we have good government working effectively and efficiently, we can bring hope and opportunity to every citizen. This is why I'm running for Lieutenant Governor, and it is at the essence of what I've been campaigning on, the Massachusetts promise. The promise of high-quality education for every child in the Commonwealth. The promise of safe communities for us to live and work in. And the promise of jobs that pay a livable wage. I'm the only candidate that can deliver on this promise. I have the skills, the experience, and the vision to do so. And I'm asking for your support on September 9th.
We will now proceed to the questions. Mr. Lake, you have up to 2 minutes to answer each question. Why are you running for Lieutenant Governor? What prepares you to serve in this capacity?
Well, I'm running for Lieutenant Governor, as I just said, to deliver on that Massachusetts promise, to bring opportunity and hope to the people of Massachusetts, to bring new jobs to the Commonwealth, jobs that pay a livable wage, to make sure that every one of our children has the opportunity they deserve to reach their full potential, and to recognize that any person who works in Massachusetts should be able to afford to live in Massachusetts. The experience I bring is unique in this field because I believe the challenges we face stem from the very local, whether it be education, infrastructure, small businesses, potholes in our streets. These are the local issues that we're facing. But we also have to recognize we have international issues. Massachusetts must not just operate in a global economy, we must fully compete in that global arena. Which means we need a Lieutenant Governor that can be a partner to the Governor and serve in that full capacity to help our cities and towns give them access to the Governor's office, but also serve as the Chief Marketing Officer for Massachusetts, selling our greatest asset, our people, and the talent that they have to attract new jobs right here to Massachusetts, jobs that pay a livable wage. You see, that is what I believe is the most important role for the Lieutenant Governor, and I'm the only candidate that has the skills that stem from local, state, national, and international experience. Not to mention, I believe we need to nominate a Democratic candidate for Lieutenant Governor who will bring value to the ticket come November. And I've built a grassroots organization that stems every corner of the Commonwealth. I'm very proud of that because that's what's going to mean the difference and bring value to the ticket come November. So again, I ask for your support, and I look forward to working with you to achieve that Massachusetts promise.
The Lieutenant Governor is a constitutional position. What benefit do you think Lieutenant Governor brings to the Massachusetts state government?
That's a great question, Joel. The fact of the matter is, the Lieutenant Governor's office, as I see it, the most valuable part is the fact that it does not have a very well-defined job description, so to speak. It's the one statewide office that therefore has the flexibility to meet the needs of the times. And as I just said, the times in the 21st century are drastically different than the times in the past. We have to be competitive in this global arena. We have to make sure that Massachusetts is out there, that we are selling ourselves, that we're attracting new jobs to Massachusetts, that we're getting that investment, but we're also opening new markets to our local businesses so that they can grow and expand and create new jobs. You know, this is why the Lieutenant Governor's office, as I see it, is so critical. Because the Governor and every other statewide office is focused on the day-to-day operations of the Commonwealth. That's what their job requires. The Lieutenant Governor can be a visionary, can help the Governor by thinking longer term, not just having to deal with the day-to-day crises and opportunities of the Commonwealth. One example, and I should include the fact that I'm proud to have the endorsement of Governor Mike Dukakis, somebody who has championed public transportation for decades. But one of the promises of public transportation, or opportunities of public transportation, that we have yet to realize is that of high-speed rail connecting the Northeast Corridor. Now, that's a perfect opportunity for the Lieutenant Governor to bring value to the administration, to work on that plan with our counterparts in all of the Northeastern states so that we can appeal to the federal government for the funding we need to realize this opportunity and bring economic development to places like Worcester and Springfield and beyond. This is part of why I believe the Lieutenant Governor's flexibility is critically important.
Good. What do you think is the appropriate role of the state government in dealing with economy and job growth? What are the biggest issues facing Massachusetts' economy, and what policy priorities would you support to address them?
It's a great question. I've covered some of it already in talking about the opportunity for state government to sell Massachusetts in this international arena. So to be proactive about attracting jobs and opportunities, to help our local businesses expand into new markets. But let's face it, small businesses are key to this. When we talk about job creation, we have to understand that the Kauffman Foundation, one of the leading institutions or foundations in this country on the topic of entrepreneurship and small businesses, did a study, and I believe the data set was from 1977 to 2012, looking at the number of net new jobs created in Massachusetts, in this country during that period of time. Every single net new job created in America was created by a small business. So if we're talking job creation, we have to focus on the entrepreneurship ecosystem, the small business opportunities that exist here in Massachusetts. We have to support our small businesses. One of the things state government can do, and as one of the roles I had at the White House was to serve as the procurement manager, doing all the purchasing for the White House. And one thing I did is made sure that we reached out to local businesses, small businesses, minority-owned businesses, and gave them the opportunity to supply whatever goods or services were necessary to the government. Well, we can do the same thing in Massachusetts. We can work to make sure that we're supporting our local businesses, our small businesses. We also can make the opportunity to create a small business a more streamlined, more convenient, more understandable process for people to navigate, rather than the bureaucracy that currently exists.
Okay. The Commonwealth's transportation infrastructure is critical to supporting our economy.
Absolutely.
What are your priorities for supporting the Commonwealth's infrastructure, and how would your initiatives be funded?
I think one of the greatest achievements of the Patrick Murray administration was the Accelerated Bridge Program. We did, I believe it was 14 bridges in 12 weeks. I mean, an unprecedented project here in Massachusetts. And you contrast that to Charlie Baker's funding scheme for the Big Dig that we're still trying to pay, and how it has crippled Massachusetts in its investment in infrastructure. We're finally starting to come out of that hole, and this is the work that Governor Patrick has really championed. So we got to continue this effort. We have to continue to invest. We need to continue to invest in our regional transit authorities, because look, I live in Boston. In fact, I'm the only candidate from Boston. But I have the access to a great subway system, buses, everything at my disposal. Every part of the Commonwealth should have, or people should have that kind of access so that they can get to and from work or to the grocery store or whatever needs that they have. We have to continue to invest in our regional transit authorities. You asked how I would pay for it. Well, a large part of this is moving towards single-payer healthcare system in Massachusetts. You see, healthcare costs now take up about 40% of our state budget. And moving to a single payment system, for instance, can cut as much as 25 to 38 cents or percent, however you look at it, off the costs. You see, take an example like Tufts Medical Center. Tufts Medical Center has a staff of over 500 people collecting the money that the Tufts is owed. Yet, it costs them between 25 and 38 cents to do it. Every dollar that they are owed, it takes 25 cents or more to collect that dollar. We can streamline this process, make it efficient, and use those additional funds to support things like education and infrastructure.
Okay. What would you do about individuals without proper documentation in Massachusetts? What are responsibilities of the state? What are the responsibilities of the individuals? What are the responsibilities of the countries that these people come from? Do you support providing services to individuals who are in Massachusetts without proper documentation?
You know, the first priority of the state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth, is to protect our citizens, right? And that includes making sure that everybody has a driver's license, or that everybody is healthy. Because the fact of the matter is, if you're driving down the street, Joel, and somebody should hit your car without a license, without insurance, you're the one who pays for that, right? And you've done nothing wrong. So there's an ability to protect the citizen by making sure that we're giving access to driver's license, even to an undocumented resident. But there's other opportunities to protect you and our friends and neighbors. I mean, I was talking to a Republican talk radio host who, as you can imagine, had a very different set of opinions and views on this issue than I. And as I said to him, you know, germs do not know the difference between a documented citizen and an undocumented citizen. So if we send our kids, or we ourselves are standing on the subway or sitting on the bus or walking down the street and somebody should sneeze, those germs don't know that they came from an undocumented citizen. We need those people to be healthy too. Otherwise, you and I get sick. We have to think as this is one Massachusetts. I say all the time, you know, my dad passed away when I was just 5 years old. I was raised by a single mom, but I was supported by a community. We have to continue to support each other. Community is how we resolve these challenges, because the challenges of the 21st century do not know man-made borders, whether it be town lines, city limits, economic disparities, or international borders. We have to address the problems together, and we have to work together to get to those solutions.
What roles and responsibilities do federal, state, and local entities have in addressing energy policy? Are there circumstances in which federal policy should supersede state and local concerns?
It's a great question. I think the greatest opportunity we have in the 21st century, and it is specific to Massachusetts, is exploring new opportunities for energy production, clean energy, renewable energy sources. I oppose the pipeline because it just doesn't make sense. We're investing in an old technology when we need to be investing in new technologies, not to mention the risks of a pipeline. And in fact, right here in Massachusetts, the early map of the pipeline puts it right through a reservoir. I mean, it just doesn't even make sense. What we need to be doing is investing in the talent that will develop clean energy, renewable energy technologies. And that's where I see the real policy focus should be, in Massachusetts specifically, because we have the talent here. And it's not just environmentally prudent to do this, it's economic development opportunity as well. Think of the jobs that can be created. Think of the opportunities. Think of the economic boost to Massachusetts if we become one of the world's greatest producers of renewable and clean energy. That's the future of Massachusetts that I want. A future that understands its impact. A future that understands that we have to protect future generations, and that yes, we might need energy, but there are better ways to get it.
What role does the state have, excuse me, what role does the state have in reducing the achievement gap? If you do think the state government has a role, what policy priorities would you support to reduce the achievement gap?
Do you want some water?
That's okay.
I think the state has a critically important role in reducing the achievement gap, because every child should have access to high quality education. You know, that to me means making sure that we have universal preschool education, recognizing that we now know that a child's greatest developmental years are those early years, and yet we don't have a system that is supporting that. It's also looking at the system as a whole. And I have said that if I am elected come November, before I take the oath of office in January, I will convene a summit, much like President Clinton did before he took the oath in 1993 on an economic summit. I would do an education summit. And the purpose of this would be to bring together all of the stakeholders, teachers, parents, students, unions, administrators, you name it, everybody together. And let's pretend the public education system never existed. and let's recreate it. Let's recreate it for the 21st century, because if Horace Mann were alive today, he would not create the public education system we now have. So we continue to tweak this system. But we have to do more. We have to have a vision, a destination of what the 21st century public education should be. I don't believe in putting all our focus and weight into these standardized tests. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was in second and third grade, I was put in a resource classroom. It was my third grade teacher, Mrs. McGraw, who recognized that I didn't have a learning capacity issue. I had a boredom issue. So she and my mom advocated to take me not just out of the resource classroom, but to put me in the advanced fourth grade classroom. That one decision changed the course of my life, because statistically speaking, my boredom would have meant I was less likely to graduate high school, more likely to be incarcerated today, rather than be sitting here as a candidate for lieutenant governor.
Do you support changes to the Chapter 70 education funding formula, including changes in the foundation budget? If you do support changes, what changes would you like to see and why? If you don't support changes, why?
Great question. I was proud to sit on the Mass Budget Policy Center board, which I had to step down. It is a nonpartisan organization. But we've been talking about this for a long time. The foundation budget is an example. It just doesn't work. It's not treating each community equally. We have to get to the root problems of some of the challenges that we face in Massachusetts, rather than continuing to put money into the symptoms. And what do I mean by that? I mean that we will spend $48,000 a year to incarcerate a nonviolent offender with an addiction problem. We'll spend $40,000 a year to house a homeless family, and yet we'll spend $13,000 a year on average to educate a third grader. And why a third grader? Because a third grader reading achievement is what we use to project what their future success are. Are they more likely to be economic self-sufficient, or are they more likely to need a homeless shelter or a motel subsidized by the state? We also use third grade reading to project how many prison beds we need in the Commonwealth. Think about that. Not to mention the fact that of the 4,000 homeless families in Massachusetts, 29% of them have a working adult. And there will be more than 20,000 homeless children this year. The average age is 8 years old, a third grader. So we have to tackle the root causes of these problems, and investing in education is chief among them. So we have to relook at this so we can create more economic investment equality across the state. And that means that every community, no matter how wealthy the residents may be or not, that they have a high-quality education system for the children that live in that community.
What strategies would you use for working with members of other parties and with others of opposing views? And what experience do you have in implementing these strategies?
It's a great question. You know, one of the things that I learned working at the White House with President Clinton is the appreciation for perspective. I'll tell you another quick story, because it was always remarkable to me how President Clinton would conduct one of his cabinet meetings. If he had an education issue or a question, let's say, he would not ask the Secretary of Education first. He might say, ask the Secretary of Defense and maybe the Secretary of Interior. He'd ask almost everybody in the room their opinion on an education issue, because it forced both he and the Secretary of Education to listen to different perspectives. Perspectives that were not prepared to answer the question. And that, to me, was a valuable lesson, because it's about listening and it's about appreciating perspective. So I recognize that there are people in this state who have very different ideas than I do for Massachusetts, who are much more conservative than I am. I'm the most progressive candidate in this field for the lieutenant governor's office. So even people within my own party might have some differing opinions. It's not that one is right or wrong. It's that we have to respect each other enough to listen, to hear the commonalities, and start from that point. I'm proud to have the support of a wide range of elected officials across the states, across the Commonwealth, rather. People who are much more conservative than I am, and people who are very progressive like I am. You know, I have demonstrated my ability to work with people on both sides of the aisle, but even with our own party that have differing views. I think it's critically important And I think that one of the real values that the Lieutenant Governor can bring to the office and the administration is to be a liaison to our legislators, recognizing that we need to build those relationships, because it's those relationships that make it possible for us to get the job done that the people have elected us to do.
Okay. We're at the end of the questions. Mr. Lake, you have 1 minute for a closing statement.
Well, Joel, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and thank you to the station for having this for all of us. My name is Mike Lake, and I am running to be your next Lieutenant Governor. I encourage you to get involved, and if you like what I've heard today, I ask you to please reach out to your friends and your family, your neighbors, and tell them that you heard about this guy, Mike Lake. He's running to be your Lieutenant Governor, and together we can deliver on that Massachusetts promise. Because there are too many people in the Commonwealth who don't realize they have an opportunity to shape who the next Lieutenant Governor will be and what that administration will be for the Commonwealth. You have that power to make a difference. Visit my website at electmikelake.com. Together we can and we will deliver on the Massachusetts promise. High quality education for every child, safe communities for us to live and work in, and jobs that pay a livable wage. My name is Mike Lake. I look forward to being your next Lieutenant Governor, and thank you for your consideration and your vote on September 9th.
Thank you, Mr. Lake, for participating in our conversation. Please make your voice count by voting at the state primary on September 9th, 2014. For Arlington Public News, this is Joel Rothstein. Thank you.